because of the fact that the sentencing agreement, the plea agreement, includes consecutive sentences of life in prison without parole, it's not anticipated that you will ever be released from prison. Do you understand that, correct?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, they entered guilty pleas because they're taking deals. Two members of the Wagner family, Jake and Angela, one of them the mom. Let me put this up on the screen. It's from the Washington Post. Edward Jake Wagner, okay, pleaded guilty to all 23 charges and agreed to testify against each of his family members as part of the plea deal. If he testifies truthfully, he and his parents and brother would be spared the death penalty if they are convicted. That's an interesting deal. So most of the time you take a deal, it's like, okay, I'll tell you what I know and I'll get a reduced penalty, right? Reduced sentence. So he got no death penalty, life in prison. But he's also making a deal for other members of his family, but it's contingent. Makes this trial a little different than most. Let's bring in our guest still with, and in Los Angeles, California, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, and columnist of Inside the Criminal Mind, Dr. Carole Lieberman. Dr. Carole Lieberman, take me inside the mind of the man who made the deal here. Jake Wagner makes this really unusual plea deal. What do you think's going on inside that criminal mind?
Yes. You know, it could be that he really thought that he wanted to spare the rest of his family from at least a death penalty. I mean, because really he might feel that this was all about his child. Maybe he feels guilty that, you know, that everybody is in trouble because of his wanting to get custody. But, you know, it's going to depend upon the family dynamics that existed way before that baby was even born or the custody issue ever came up. In other words, for example, you know, the brother who's on trial now is only 1 year older than Jake. So did he, when Jake was born, like typically a child will have some resentment to a sibling who's born, especially born so close to when they were born. So has there been rivalry between the two of them? How is that going to play out? It's very interesting that the mother wanted the babies to call her mother. So that, you know, so really, is it all about her? Is it all about her wanting to control? So we're going to be seeing the family dynamics played out in all of this.
Family versus family here, Carole Lieberman, it's a very different situation. It's what makes this trial so unique. It's not only one family versus another family. Now there's a split within the family. But I look at that defendant, Jake, and he just looks so young, so young. And, you know, he had to make that decision that I am going to spend the rest of my life in prison, right? To not roll the dice at trial, because we know anything can happen at a trial. Do you think it was the fear of the death penalty?
I'm sure that, you know,
in prison.
I'm sure that played into it. You know, I mean, he is young and 26, and so that's a long time to be in prison if he, you know, without, if it's just life in prison. But at least it's a sure thing, and he can make somewhat of life for himself. And perhaps also he's thinking, well, I'm only 26. Maybe by the time I get to be 50, they'll change the laws, and I will be able to get out. Something like that.
Yeah, I can see that calculation going on. You know, watch too many movies, though. These people, he's going to die in prison. He's going to die in prison. All right. So, Dr. Carole Lieberman, let's talk about this moment that you've got George Wagner on trial, the 4th, and his mom comes into the courtroom. They haven't seen each other in years. What is that going to be like? Do you think that they exchange glances? What happens there in that moment?
Well, you know, first of all, I think that probably it has broken down the two who are getting deals and the two who are going to go on trial, broken down along family lines. In other words, along the way the family dynamics were before. Because typically, it doesn't happen all the time, but typically the father is closer to the eldest son, and typically the mother is closest to the youngest son. So they might have had this closeness, this kind of splitting, in a sense, of the family beforehand. Now, is the mother going to look at her eldest son and feel guilty that that she, if she was planning it, that she was responsible for getting him into this, and also that her plea deal may well result in something worse for him? I think he's going to be angry. I think he'll probably be angry that she did make that plea deal, unless because they pled innocent. So somehow I don't know how they're thinking they're going to get out of this, but they could well be looking at her like she's the one who, is going to be standing in their way of getting out or of getting a lesser sentence.
Absolutely. Dr. Carole Lieberman, let me ask you this about the jurors. Sometimes we see people who are connected in a case and somehow someone becomes the villain. Most recently, obviously, Dr. Carole Lieberman, during the Johnny Depp trial, Amber Heard became that villain. Is it possible in this case that the mother ends up being the villain, her son as a victim of her, that she is getting him wrapped up in all of this, and he could potentially walk in this case?
Yes, that certainly is possible. I mean, I guess in part it depends upon the makeup of the jury, whether they have experience with their own controlling mothers, or know about that. But what I think could be interesting is that they're going to be very emotional. And families do know, like what you were mentioning, that there are secrets. All families have secrets. And so who's ever on the stand, they know really the secrets of all the other family members. And it would be really interesting if some of them sort of spoke out, got so angry and or had something very emotional to say that they just yelled it out, even though, of course, they know they're not supposed to.
Dr. Carole Lieberman, thank you so much. Always great to see you. We appreciate it.